Hey there, good morning, everybody. Tim from Alpha Trading coming at you with this week's stocks to watch for trading and investing, as well as stock market overview. Got a lot to go through, so I'm just going to hop right into it. Just a housekeeping note. I've been doing these free videos now for I think going on 5 or 6 years, and I'm going to start rolling it back at least the overall blog posts as we head into the new year. I'm probably going to be doing the free stuff maybe once or twice a month, and that's about it. And I'm going to focus really primarily on myself and the pro members moving forward. So just FYI, don't expect to see as many posts as I've done for the last 5 6 years. Just need to take some more time for myself. So going through some personal things, and that's just kind of the way things are working out. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and hop right into this. So we've got for economic calendar, we've got a pretty big week next week. Things that could impact the market. We've got uh, manufacturing PMI, ISM, manufacturing, construction spending, motor vehicle sales. ADP employment. We've got market services PMI, ISM, non-manufacturing, weekly jobless claims, factory orders, trade deficit. Then we got the big jobs number on Friday, unemployment rate, hourly earnings, and consumer sentiment, wholesale inventories, consumer credit. Lots of stuff that could potentially impact the markets. Real quick, just want to show you last week's list that was sent out to the pro members. We had some really nice movers: CLVS, PTI, MYOV, NTNX, Box, FAT, several pretty decent movers last week. And some of these names actually going to kind of move over to the list for the pro members again this week. Uh, so listen, there are a couple of things. I mean, it's been a fantastic, like I posted in the blog there. Definitely been a nice market for the bulls. Santa, I think, has come early. The question is, how do we close out the year? And we could continue just to squeeze up or melt up and have some kind of a blow off top here, but there are definitely things out there that are giving me a little bit of reason to for caution, and I think we want to pay close attention to that as we move forward. Let's take a look real quick. We've got some earnings next week, and I've got some names that off of this list that I think we want to kind of keep an eye on. Um, for earnings could be impactful for either their sector or just potential trading opportunities off their technical setups. But we'll get to that in a minute. I think right now, what we want to do is we want to take a look at. Let's take a look at the sectors and the things that I'm getting a bit concerned about. So, uh, IBB is, I mean, this was one of the sectors that led when we were having a bit of trouble in the markets. They were pulling us down, and we have had an amazing snapback rally in the IBB. I mean, it has been almost parabolic, and there are a lot of names in the space that have gone parabolic, right? So we've got a lot of small cap bios that have had some interesting snapbacks, have had 3 4 5 day runs almost straight up. I do not expect that will continue. I would not be shocked if we were to see a bit of a pullback in the biotech space. Now, that doesn't mean we go crashing back to all-time lows or crashing back to lows. I just think we need to take a breather, right, and pull back a bit, maybe to an area of potential support down to the 110 area, even down to 100. Could be an area of price support, and that could be pretty ugly for some of the names. Remember, biotechs typically lots of debt, and very speculative, right? I mean, if they don't pass phase 3, uh, they get crushed, or phase 2, right? So I mean, got to be careful in that space, and it's had an amazing run. I think it needs to take a pause. IWM, we broke through an area of price resistance, kind of flagging a little bit here, but small caps. Now we could run into the end of the year, right? You could get some crazy runs into the end of the year. You get tax loss selling, um, and then maybe people start to pick up some shares of stock of these things heading into the new year. But IWM is, has had a nice breakout. I wouldn't be totally shocked if it were to pause, maybe consolidate, flag, or even pull back and test this area of potential price support. What was resistance? See if that holds as support. IYT transportation kind of pulling back a little bit here and making what looks to be a potential lower high. So we'll see if maybe we come down and make a lower low. We've been making higher lows. If we come back down, we test the 50-day, we would then be making a lower low. So could be seeing the beginnings of a reversal in IYT. QQQs, right, at an area. I mean, we're at all-time highs, but potentially, we've had a big run, and we're getting quite a ways away from the 50-day moving average. Maybe we start to pull back a little bit here. SMH consolidating, right? Consolidating after a nice big run up into trendline resistance. Consolidating, maybe we see a pullback here in a test of the 50-day moving average. S&P 500, same thing. We've broken out. We've broken out, but that doesn't mean we can't pull back. And when things pull after a big run like this, it can be very dramatic. So keep that in mind. TVIX, UVXY, definitely on my radar if we get some real weakness. Look, if we don't get a trade deal and the tariffs go on by December 15th or whatever it is, I don't think the market's going to react well to that. I think the market has kind of, baked in the fact that they think the trade deal, phase 1 of the trade deal, is going to get done. And if it doesn't get done, I don't think the markets will react well. So keep that in mind. Now, if we get the trade deal, the phase 1 trade deal, the question is it already priced in? That's the big question, right? We'll have to see how that plays out. But we've had a very big run in a very short period of time. Coming into the end of the year, it could be very, very interesting time and very volatile time. So be careful. So one of the spaces that was really, stood out to me was, of course, the IBB and the huge run that's had. And I'll show you the other one that's standing out to me in the charts that I'm seeing, some of the charts within the sector that are kind of standing out, and I find very interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. Aerospace defense, double top, potentially pull back to the 50-day moving average. Now, this was a leading sector for a while. What's concerning about this is that we kind of broke a long-term trend line. And just imagine a line being drawn here, right? We're coming to the underside of that trend line, and could be at a double top. Maybe we see some weakness in the aerospace and defense sector, but little concerned about that sector as well. That's not the one I want to talk about, but home builders. Right, consolidating, pulling back a little bit here, but it has been a very strong space. Building materials, same thing. Pulled back to an area of price support, bounced a little bit. The space actually looks pretty good. It looks, if this, what is that, $59 area can hold this support, I think that would be good. If we break below that, I think you're going to get a 50 test. XLE Energy, is actually it had been stair stepping higher. We'll have to see how it plays out. This has been a very tough space to try and find the bottom in. There is a double bottom on the daily, but that doesn't mean we can't get a triple bottom test. So we need to break this long-term trend line with some conviction. Maybe that doesn't happen until after the first of the year. XLF Financials also had a huge move in a short period of time. I wouldn't be totally shocked if if this sector were to take a pause, maybe pull back a bit. Industrials broke through this area of price resistance. Wouldn't be totally shocked if we were to come back and test that area as potential support and see maybe if the 50-day holds as support as well. XLP, this consumer staples, so which is typically what? It is typically the considered a safety trade, right? Been consolidating for the past 3 months, and we actually kind of broke out. Now I think that's kind of interesting. That's kind of like, okay, what's coming around the corner here? The safety trades acting pretty well. So in a market that's just ripping. Healthcare, big rip in healthcare. This seems to me to be somewhat extended. Wouldn't be shocked if that were to pull back. Consumer discretionary pulling back right off of a little trend line here. See if this 50-day, it's kind of coiling up, right? See if this 50-day acts as support. And then XOP looks like grim death again. It looks like it has broken below this area of potential support. So oil and exploration not looking real good. But let me show you what I was looking at that kind of got my attention. So one of the spaces that is really I had several charts that looked pretty darn good as far as how they were setting up. Let me pull this up in here. 1 second here. There we go. Let me pull these up. Dust and gold. Right, so gold is actually kind of filled this gap here in this 135 area. Seems to be holding as potential support. Look at JNUG and Nugget. These are the 3-time levered ETFs for gold. Miners, right? Junior miners and miners. And they kind of look like they're trying to break out of this little downward wedge formation. And that to me is interesting. We're in a very strong market, right? Very strong market, and we're getting this breakout in JNUG and Nugget, and gold is getting a little action. And then going through my scans, I saw several pretty good looking charts within that space, within the gold and silver mining space. So I think it's a sector that you want to keep an eye on. And what is it indicating, right? Is it indicating that maybe, there's some money piling into areas of perceived safety, right? I just think it's time. Look, if you've got some nice profits, it's never a terrible time to lock some profit in. I'm not telling you to sell everything. Just saying, look, if you've got some real nice profits, lock them in, and maybe keep some powder dry, because if we do get some kind of a dramatic pullback, you're going to see some opportunity out there to potentially take advantage of. And if you don't have any powder dry, you're going to regret that. So, all right, so that is that's that on the sectors. And let's take a look at this week's list of stocks to watch. All right, first thing before I hop into that, the T2108, T2107, those are the indicators that I kind of pay attention to. when we get to extremes, right? 60 or 70 or above, things are probably overdone to the upside. 20 and below, things are probably overdone to the downside. And we were starting to get up into the 60s, you know, kind of moving in that direction of things getting overdone. In the T2108, it's the amount of stocks that are over the 40-day moving average. And then T2107, we were kind of fiddle in the middle. Not too extreme, but you know, I'm watching these indicators, and to me, it looks like, you know, the T2108 is maybe is getting to an area where we should be a little bit cautious. We'll see how it plays out in the next week or so. But let's take a look at the stocks to watch. Now, this is not the list of stocks for the pro members. I've got a full list of stocks for them. This is just stocks that are reporting earnings next week. Software application work reports on. Hold on a second. Let me move this out of the way. When does work report? Work reports Slack. They report Wednesday after the close. And I got to tell you, I kind of like the way the daily is set up here. You've broken this long-term trend line. You've got an area of price resistance, potential flat top breakout, testing the 50-day moving average. Take out 2350 with some conviction. You maybe get a pretty nice pop in work. Maybe it moves into earnings. I probably would wait until after earnings unless you just want to take a little lotto piece into the earnings event. But I do like the way it's setting up technically. Now, it's not a thin stock, but pretty interesting setup there in work. Now, if these guys disappoint, may get a double bottom test. This thing breaks into the, you know, below 20 into the teens. You know, nobody knows where the bottom will be, but that could be one to keep an eye on till it does kind of put in some kind of bottoming pattern. Right now, you got a potential reverse head and shoulders pattern. So a lot to like about this particular chart, and I think it could be an interesting space to keep an eye on if these guys report better than expected earnings. CRM, another software application stock, that's kind of the opposite of work, right? We are flirting with all-time highs. Now, if these guys disappoint, we could see a pullback into maybe the 50-day. It does look as though we're potentially going to see a golden cross on this. The 50 is looking like it might cross over the 200-day moving average. If that's the case, then you know this thing could take out all-time highs, right? I mean, look at the run that this thing has had. So a break over 165 with conviction could get very interesting. You're in blue skies with this thing. Who knows where the top is? Just like we wouldn't know where the bottom is for Slack. Who knows where the top is for CRM? So definitely one to keep an eye on for the space, right? For the sector, and for potential all-time highs. And stochastic starting to curl up a little bit. I don't know, man. Could be interesting. That one reports Tuesday after the close. So definitely worth keeping on the radar on that one. Another software, so big week for software application stocks, right? So we did have the death cross here. We've had a nice rally back on Smartsheet. It's coming up into an area of potential price resistance. So let's keep an eye on this one as well and see how they report. Now, they report, when did they report? Smartsheet. Hold on. I can't find it. I know it's here somewhere. Slacks. Oh, they report Wednesday after the close. Same as Slack. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But I think it's another one to keep an eye on for the space, right? But it's had a very nice run into this number. So, you know, if they disappoint or guide down, you know, we could see it coming back down and test this $36 area. So, worth having on the radar. ZUO. So, this is software infrastructure. I think this is a China name. So, kind of putting in a bottoming formation on the longer time frame, right? It looks like we keep tapping this $13 area and finding that as support. Right now, basically what I'm looking at is we are building a box, right? We're building a box. This could be the first box. There's a big gap to fill on the daily. Right now, we're at an area where we could potentially break out of this box, right? If they report a good number. Take out the $16 holla, and if we break out of that box, maybe we go up and test somewhere around 1885 or so. You're going to probably have some resistance at the 200-day, 1735, 1750. But there is a gap to potentially fill up to 19, $20, right? Up to $20. So if these guys disappoint, then we may come back down and test the bottom of this box, right? Break down through the bottom of the box, and that probably wouldn't be a very good thing. So definitely worth keeping an eye on this name for a break over 16. ZUO reports on Thursday after the close. So I do like the fact that it's above the 50-day moving average. You know, if they report a good number, it might just actually pull back and test the 1475, 1450 area, even off a good number, right? Because it's had a pretty nice run already, and it's at an area of resistance. So could be a sell the news event. We'll see how it plays out, but definitely one to have on your radar. ZM, Zoom Video, another recent IPO, kind of got a reverse head and shoulders pattern here. This is another one to keep an eye on for a potential trend line break. It looks like it's kind of consolidating here right at the 50-day moving average. Zoom reports Thursday after the close. ALOT. So we've got another one here that is trading within a box, right? So this time we're at the bottom end of the box. Stochastic starting to curl up. These guys, when do these guys? Astronova reports Wednesday before the open. So, you know, we've got a trend line, potential trend line break. You know, would be looking for it to head back up and test the top of that box, somewhere around $17. You take that box out, there is a gap to fill up to about $20. I mean, it's not, if it breaks below, you know, 1480, 1450, and who knows where it finds support. It could come all the way back down to 1350, 1250. I don't know. But could be an interesting one to keep an eye on as well. Looks like maybe we're kind of trying to put in a base here, and it looks like potentially we found some support in the 1450 area. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but definitely one to keep an eye on. HOME. At home. I mean, they report on Wednesday after the close. I'm not super crazy about it, specialty retail or whatever. I'm not super crazy about this chart. It's definitely in a downtrend. There is a gap to fill on the daily. It's below the 50-day. I'm not super crazy about this chart, but if they report a good number, they maybe we get a trend line break, we get a test up into the 200-day moving average, maybe even some kind of a gap fill over time. I don't expect it to go right straight back up and fill that gap, but it's in a long-term downtrend. It's if they disappoint, potentially coming back down and maybe doing a double bottom test somewhere around $4.30. So be careful with that one, but worth keeping an eye on. CLDR. So these guys report on Thursday after the close. I think it's Icon has been building a position. Now he bought a bunch of his shares in the $5 area. He could be selling out here in the 9 and change area. I don't know. It has been stair stepping, right? Broke out of this box, kind of hung out in this box, and now it's breaking out into this box, and it just broke out of this one, right? And maybe it continues to consolidate and then move higher, but it's had a pretty big move in a short period of time. I think on a pullback, this would be interesting. Maybe more as a long-term holder swing, jump in with Icon. Look for a gap fill down to about $7 or so. If these guys report good earnings, give a good guide, it could get a nice pop. But it's had a pretty nice move already. So, but definitely, I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. MRVL. Right, just for the semiconductor space, I think this one is definitely one we want to at least pay attention to their earnings. This thing is flirting. Is that okay? It's not all-time highs. This is an area of potential resistance here on the longer-term time frame. If they disappoint, it could put some pressure on the sector, which has been pretty damn strong. So we'll see how it plays out on the daily. I would not be totally shocked if we were to pull back and maybe test the 200-day moving average, right? Or pull back and test somewhere around the $23 holla. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But MRVL, I think we should pay attention to just for the overall sector. And that's it. That is the list of stocks that are reporting next week that I'm really interested in. There are other names too. I mean, that could be interesting. Kroger is one. Let's see. What's the other one? RH is another one. I mean, there's some other names that are reporting that could be interesting. But that's it for me. All right. So good luck trading next week. And if you've got some real nice profits, don't be afraid to lock some of them in. I think there are reasons to be somewhat cautious. If we do see a dramatic pullback, keep an eye on TVIX and UVXY for short-term trading opportunities. And that's it. Do not chase. Always have a plan. Know your risk reward. And I will see you next time.